In cosmology, there's one number we don't understand, the cosmological constant. But in particle physics, we haven't understood a lot more for a lot longer, so we're way ahead. We don't understand why gravity is the weakest force in nature. We don't understand why the proton's 2,000 times heavier than the electron. We don't understand why there are 3 generations of elementary particles, etc. But maybe, as particle physicists have begun to realize, maybe we don't have to understand any of this. Maybe it's all an accident. Maybe all these fundamental quantities are just accidental and they vary, and there are many different universes. And then, if they were any different, we wouldn't be here. So instead of a theory of everything, you just need a theory of anything. We have such a theory. It's called string theory. I'll give you one comparison summary. So one guy says to another, I just had an awesome idea. Suppose all matter and energy is made of tiny vibrating strings. The other guy says, okay, what would that imply? The first person says, I don't know. So that's a history of string theory over the last 50 years. Which used to be a theory of everything, but now you see the string theory predicts a space that's maybe 10 or 11 dimensions, but most of us notice that we don't live in a universe manifestly that has 10 or 11 dimensions. So where did all those extra dimensions go? Well, maybe they got curled up on a scale so small we can't see them. But it turns out each different way we curl up 11 dimensions into a large 4-dimensional universe and a small extra 7 dimensions. Each time, with different way we do that, produces a different 4-dimensional universe with different laws of physics. And it's argued in this theory there may be 10 to the 500 different ways of compactifying these extra dimensions, meaning that you can have a universe with any kind of laws of physics. And in that case, in each universe, you look at the energy of empty space, and you're bound to find one that looks like ours. Now, is that science? If you can have a universe, if you can predict anything that you can imagine is allowed in your theory, well, then it's probably not science. It's not falsifiable. But whether it is or not, it may be true. And if it's true, then even the laws of physics themselves are just an accident. They're created when the universe is created. The last bastion of nothingness has fallen. You don't need anyone to determine the laws of physics, because if all laws of physics arise, somewhere we'll measure the laws that we measure. And those laws will come into existence at the same time the universe does. So, if that sense, this multiverse, which is many possible universes as has now become known, becomes equivalent to what was once called the prime mover in Aristotle or beyond. The first cause, as the Catholic Church would say. They say that God has to be eternal because you can't, every effect has a cause. And you can't have a beginning without a cause. Well, in this case, that's not true in my opinion, but in this case, the universe could have been around, the multiverse could have been around forever, and our universe nucleated from a multiverse 13.7 billion years ago. So the multiverse is eternal, plays the role of God, but it's much different than God because it's well motivated. You know, when I've debated with some Christian apologists, they say, well, you physicists have just invented a multiverse because you don't like God. That's not the reason we were led to a multiverse. We were led to a multiverse because of the measurements we make about the universe. If an implication is that it replaces God, that's okay, but that's not, it wasn't for some philosophical reason or because we didn't like having a God that we invented or proposed it. It may be the case, but if it's the case, then it's quite clear that everything can come from nothing, by the way I've told. And the last kind of nothing I want to talk about, I've been now an hour and 5 minutes, I want to go for 3 more minutes, I think, because it's in honor of a very dear friend of mine, Christopher Hitchens, who's passed away, who was writing the foreword for my new book before he died. And when I told him about this stuff, he said, you know, nothing is heading towards us as fast as it can. Because let's think of what the future is going to be if the energy of empty space dominates the universe. What will the future be? Well, the future will be quite poetic. Because if the universe is speeding up and getting faster and faster and faster, then all the galaxies we now see will soon, one day, be moving away from us faster than the speed of light, which is allowed in general relativity. And they'll disappear. And by soon, I mean in a few 100 billion years. In a few 100 billion years, astronomers evolving, and I can still say that, evolving on planets around stars in what is left of the Milky Way galaxy, will develop the laws of quantum mechanics, discover electromagnetism, general relativity. They'll build telescopes, they'll look out, and what will they see? They'll see the universe we thought we lived in 100 years ago. You'll look out and see a single galaxy surrounded by an eternal empty void. No evidence of a Big Bang. All the evidence of the Big Bang will have disappeared. And after that, the stars in our galaxy will burn out, collapse to black holes eventually, which will evaporate, leaving nothing left over at all. An eternal, dark, empty universe. So in that case, the answer to the question, why is there something rather than nothing, will be quite simple. Just wait. There won't be for long. And I point this out because it demonstrates an incredible conceit that humans have. In biology, people have this conceit that humans are the pinnacle of evolution. And it just stops here. Of course it doesn't. Similarly, we have this idea the universe was created for us, and it stops here. But the future universe will look quite different than the present one. Poetically, like the one we thought we lived in, but very, very different. So, I think I'll skip Einstein versus God. Because Einstein wins. Yeah, well, I think I'll guess. You can read the end of my book if you want to read this. What I want to conclude with is that science has demonstrated that a universe from nothing is not only plausible, but likely. A profound result. And as I've said at the end of the last slide, which you missed, is that to me, what makes this so exciting is it means that God is either unnecessary or redundant. And I find that incredibly satisfying. What I've also tried to argue is this age-old question is not so interesting anymore because the whole term of the question has changed. Science changes the meaning of things. What we mean by something and nothing is completely changed from the time of classical philosophers and theologians who first raised the issue. So often I'm told I'm not discussing the nothing of classical philosophers. But who the hell cares about the nothing of classical philosophers, since I care about the nothing that applies to the real universe? And to know about that nothing, we have to ask the universe. We don't just think about it. The question, why is there something rather than nothing, is not the interesting question. The interesting question is, how did the universe evolve and how can we find out? And it takes science to do that. And that's why it's so exciting to continue this mystery story that we don't know the answer to yet. We don't understand what the energy empty space is all about. There's tons of things we don't understand. For those people who claim, these scientists are claiming to know everything, we don't know everything, and that's what makes it exciting. We're sometimes even wrong. Unlike theologians. Because the difference between science and religion is, in science you can change your mind, and that's why science makes progress and religion doesn't. But, let me leave you. Now, I first told you halfway through this lecture, the first moral, you are completely insignificant. The second thing I want to remind you of is the future is miserable. Eternal, dark, empty space. You are completely insignificant, the future is miserable, but that shouldn't depress you. It should excite you. It should excite you because we are lucky enough to be living at this time when we've been evolved in a consciousness and intelligence where we can appreciate the universe, we can study it back to the earliest moments of the Big Bang, we can even imagine there are other universes. We should celebrate our brief moment in the sun. And if we think about the far future, it won't be nice, but it will have this characteristic. It'll be lonely and ignorant, but we'll be dominant. And for those of us who live in the United States, we're very, very used to that. Thank you very much.